We are at the point in the season where we are starting to project the NHL award contenders, and today we are going to be giving you our opinions.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for tuning in today. As always, I am joined by my partner in crime, Nick Zararis. Nick, how you doing?
Again, it's still cold, Jess, unfortunately.
Yes, you're preaching to the choir on that one. Before we jump into things, today's episode is brought to you by Jess Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jess case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com and use code LOCKEDON to get $20 off of your order. That's JASE medical.com. Today, we are going to be talking all about the Hart Trophy. This is a fun conversation because everyone's opinion is different for the most part, and everyone has different criteria for what makes someone a Hart Trophy candidate as well as the winner. So stick around for that, and make sure you subscribe to Locked On Flames wherever you're getting your podcasts and on YouTube as well. We are here for you 5 days a week. This was a fun list to put together.
For sure. Because everybody thinks about hockey differently, especially in relation when we think about the MVP award and other sports. The other sports, it's pretty easy to do, in all honesty. Football, it goes to the quarterback who's on the best team. That's generally, it takes something really special for that not to be the case. More likely than not, Lamar Jackson is going to win that whenever the votes get counted up. Good quarterback on the best team in the regular season. Okay. Baseball, whoever has the most WAR wins the award now. That's been Ohtani the last couple of years. Easy enough. Basketball is a little more subjective because people like narratives, especially the people who vote on the award over there.
Mm-hmm.
And hockey, it's been you're either Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, or Austin Matthews for the last number of years. You have to be a good player. You have to put up the counting stats, and you have to be on the team that makes the playoffs. The hockey threshold is high, and I say that because in the history of the award, only 3 players ever that have won the award that are retired now didn't eventually make the Hall of Fame. Right now, there's still 2 active players who probably are going to be on the fence in Corey Perry and Taylor Hall of whether or not they end up getting in eventually. But it's a high bar. Generally speaking, the best player typically wins the award, which is why a lot of these conversations end up burning out as moot because McDavid's got the trump card of I'm the best player in the world whenever I feel like it, and that usurps a lot of the discussion that could be had.
Yeah, and that's why it's kind of interesting if you remove Connor McDavid from the conversation,
and you have to basically,
like you can't just approach this, I feel like, and not make it super obvious and be like, okay, Connor McDavid. Like, that was a very obvious choice, of course, but there are so many players in this league, and yeah, of course, there's only one Connor McDavid, but valuable holds different meanings to each team. Like, is your goaltender your most valuable player? You could make an argument that Jacob Markstrom is the Flames' most valuable player right now. Well, prior to his injury. And it's really team specific, I guess, if you want to break it down to that level.
Oh, for sure. And that's always something that gets baked into these conversations and something we're going to talk about a little bit later on in the third segment where we talk about how the situation matters but one of the people on my list and somebody on a lot of lists in both Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes, Quinn Hughes played not as good as this last year, but 85-90% of this, and he wasn't really in the Norris conversation at all. But now that the team is playing better, you will start to get award consideration. And I don't disagree with that notion. I think there has to be some element of team success for you to win an individual award, especially something like MVP, something like best all-around defenseman, because that implies the way you play is helping. We talked a lot about how the way Sharon Govich plays yesterday is inefficient. He's going to end the season with decent numbers, but he doesn't play hockey in a particularly efficient way.
Mhm.
It's great Erik Karlsson put up 100 points last year, but he didn't play particularly good defense, and the Sharks would have lost maybe 3 or 4 more games without him on that team versus what they ultimately did. So it's great he put up the counting stats, but points are not the be all end all. There needs to be a little, I'm not saying it's a huge factor, but there needs to be some element of team success in there. And you need to be, as you were saying, one of the driving forces of that team's success. You mentioned goalie. One of the people I have on my ballot, and I'll spoil it now, is Connor Hellebyuck, because the Jets are the best or one of the best teams in the league, depending on the day of the week when you look at the standings. And he's got the most or second most goals saved above expected of any goalie in the league on a team that does not score a lot of goals, that doesn't have a true bona fide superstar other than him. Mark Scheifele's good. Kyle Connor, who's been out for a while, is good. Nikolai Ehlers is an analytics darling. Josh Morrissey should be a Norris finalist. But in reality, Connor Hellebuck's the best player on that team. And when you are the best player on one of the best teams, and you play a position like goalie, that is excessively valuable. You have a tremendous impact on the outcome of games.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's, I guess, to add to that is goaltending. When we talk about it ad nauseum on this show, you cannot successfully project and predict what a goaltender is going to do. Because if I remember correctly, last season, Connor Hellebyuck wasn't playing like Connor Hellebyuck.
He was like 7th or 8th in goals saved above expected. So he was good. He wasn't his usual self.
Yeah. And that's, obviously when you have a quote unquote decline like that, to bounce back and the way he's playing to be number 1 in goals saved above expected on one of the best teams in the league, you have to look at it and be like, you're impactful. If you miss a game or if you go on a stretch where you're injured and you can't play or play to this level, what happens? Do the Jenga pieces fall?
And the other point why I brought up Hellebyuck now, even though we're going to talk about a little more about who we would pick in the next segment, is I feel like we are at large, we are too quick to dismiss defensemen and goalies for the Hart. And I know that's typically because we just associate with whoever records the most points is the most valuable. And when it's typically been Connor McDavid or Austin Matthews or Leon Draisaitl, it's not hard. It's pretty hard to argue against that. If somebody puts up 130, 140 points, that is extremely valuable. There aren't a lot of people capable of doing that. But my counterpoint to that would be we have to kind of put McDavid in his own box. Otherwise, nobody else is ever going to win this award. And that's not a knock on Connor McDavid. I mean, you've seen this happen in the other sports. Like Tom Brady only won 4 MVPs when he probably could have won 7 or 8. LeBron probably could have won 7 or 8 in a row at one point, but the voters stopped voting for him because they had fatigue. Same thing here. I'm very curious to see if McDavid can get into that conversation where he gets in shouting distance. Gretzky has the most. He won 9 in his career. McDavid, I believe, has 4 as we speak. I'll pull it up as we're talking here. But when you're talking about that level of sustained success, 3-time Hart winner. So 3-time Hart winner, 5-time point leader. So yeah, strong correlation between being the best player in the world and scoring a lot of points. And that's not a knock on him to say, oh no, I don't want him on my team. It's that for the purposes of this conversation, we're going to expand it out a little bit more and have a little more open-ended conversation.
Yeah. And to add to that, he should be in his own box. And I'm sure that he would completely understand if things did shift where recognition was divvied up elsewhere. And it's not a knock to Connor McDavid because the only negative thing I can say about Connor McDavid is that his house is very boringly designed and decorated, but that's really as far as I can go. One of the best athletes of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. McDavid's a first ballot Hall of Famer right now if he retired at 27 years old. 27 years old. Not even a shadow of a hesitation. 3 MVPs in an 8-year career. I think it's 8 years. Math is hard. Yeah, 9 years. This is his 9th season in the league. Yeah. McDavid's my draft year, so he always makes me feel especially old as a
Yeah.
2015. So yeah.
Yeah, nope, that makes me feel very,
It's
very
Jover.
aged. Yep. Oh, it's so Jover. But coming up next, we are going to go over our Hart Trophy candidate ballots, and you're going to want to stick around for that. And before we do that, though, we are going to take a quick break here. I know we come to sports to escape from the crazy realities of life, but unfortunately, flu season and RSV, strep throat, all of those nasty bugs are real life and unavoidable. With the Jess case, you get a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, among others. This stuff could really happen to any of us, especially if you work with the general public. You never know what you're encountering. Visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacist at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared. Go to jacemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off of your order. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. And you want to go first?
Sure. So my 5, I have Nathan MacKinnon 1, I have Quinn Hughes 2, Sidney Crosby 3, Artemi Panarin 4, Connor Hellebyuck 5. Real quick, I'll run through and then we can go back and forth. Hughes is one of the 3 best defensemen in the world on one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the league. Nathan MacKinnon is Nathan MacKinnon. Sidney Crosby is putting together one of the best seasons of his career at 36 years old on a not a particularly good Penguins team. And really one of the few reasons that team is even moderately competitive. Panarin is the only player on the Rangers who makes things happen at 5-on-5. He is the single reason that both Vinny Trocheck and Alexis Lafreniere are having career years. And Connor Hellebyuck, as we discussed in the opening segment, you're the best player on one of the best teams in the league. You deserve to be in this conversation.
Yeah, no, that's fairly, that's easy to defend. I have in no particular order because I don't enjoy that, especially at this point in the season where anything can happen. And I'm too nice, I guess. I'm a pushover. But I have Kucherov. He's just absolutely phenomenal. And I believe it was a little bit after Thanksgiving. I think he had like 55 points, and it was still pretty early in the season. And he's still doing that. Nathan MacKinnon, of course. Connor McDavid. David Pastrnak, I think, has been very good for the Bruins this year, and I promise I'm not a homer on that one. And Sidney Crosby. I mean, him and Patrice Bergeron have, now that Bergie's retired, but they both aged so well, and there hasn't been a drop off for Crosby. He is still so useful, effective, and important.
The thing I commend Sid for was evolving his game as he got older. I mean, there are a lot of guys who will stubbornly cling to what worked for them, and the game passes them by. Sid is still every bit as smart as he was. He's just not as strong, not as fast of a straight line skater. So he dominates with positioning, literally where he is on the ice, and using his body for leverage. He is one of the best winners of loose pucks in the entire league because he has a supreme understanding of how to use his body for positioning. I mean, everybody likes to joke about how big his ass is, but he uses it for leverage. He's able to win a lot of those loose pucks to protect the pucks in corners because the way he's built. He uses his low center of gravity to shield the puck. It's why he's so good on the backhand. You can't knock the puck away from him because he's so built and so defined in his lower body. And at 36 years old, to still be playing that style of play, I know a lot of people like to joke, that Sid, when he got to 30, he just became the best grinder in the league. And to some effect, it's true. I mean, he plays a very simple style now where, yeah, he still makes the great passes, but a lot of what makes him so effective now is he doesn't lose puck battles. He is always on the puck, and you can't get it away from him.
Yeah, and I feel like calling Sidney Crosby underrated is very
It's silly,
unfair,
yeah.
but, like, there is some truth to it because I feel like, not to sound like an old man, but this younger generation, I don't think that they fully appreciate the extent of what Crosby has done for the league,
No.
His entire career, and just how he has evolved and did it successfully.
We sound like the old heads.
We do.
We sound like the old heads talking about Michael Jordan and the LeBron discussions.
Yeah.
Like, we appreciate, as people who grew up in the wake of the lockout that canceled an entire season, and Gary Bettman pushed all his chips to the middle on Ovechkin and Crosby being the faces of the league. They did it. They survived on those two playing each other in the playoffs all those times, and Sid taking the mantle as best Canadian player in the world, and Ovechkin now his pursuit of the all-time goal scoring record. You know, those guys mean a lot to the game, more than just the on-ice stats. I mean, we're talking about two of, the 15 best players ever in the history of the sport, and they came into the league at the same time and have hung around and been this quality of player for this long. So to circle back to actually what we're supposed to be talking about, but conversation leads itself. I mean, I have MacKinnon. You can make an argument for you said Kucherov. Kucherov's still leading the league in points on not a particularly good Tampa team, which again, that's something that's worth highlighting, that he's doing a lot of work. Stamkos is getting up there in age. Braden Point isn't the player he was a couple of years ago in those playoff runs where he was over a point per game, 2 points per game during the one playoff run when they won the cup. But they are still hanging around, and it's largely because of him. McDavid's probably going to end up winning this award anyway, so all of this is moot. As you said, I mean, he missed, I want to say, like 4 games at one point with that knee injury. He got off to a little bit of a slow start when he came back from that injury. He didn't look right, but he looks all the way back now.
Yeah, the McDavid that we saw at the end of October, early November is very much a thing of the past. I feel like I get it. Injuries happen, and if there is someone that is going to work their way through something and make sure they come back to their fullest capacity, it is Connor McDavid. If you haven't already, there's the documentary he did where he did like 1,000 hours of physical therapy to rehab his knee. Incredible. But no, I think that he has done a great job, obviously, this season, and kind of when the Oilers were struggling, he was still there, holding them up.
He's a special player, man. What I'll say, if you have not seen Connor McDavid play hockey in person, that is something you owe it to yourself to do.
Yes. If you are going to splurge on anything, make sure it's a game against the Oilers. I got to see him, 2018, 2019, I think. And thankfully my tickets were $35 thanks to student discount. So take advantage of those. But no, it's incredible. He's incredible.
One of the best we have ever seen, arguably the best we may ever see.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that about does it for this segment. And we are going to talk about how playing on good teams, bad teams, soggy middle teams kind of play into where you may fall in terms of nominees and fun awards and things like that. We'll be back right after this. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data. And matching engine that helps you find a quality candidate fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. One of the things that I really like about Indeed is truly just being able to do the interview on the site, because you're not waiting around for a Zoom link and hoping that the person got it. It is right there. And with Indeed, you're leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day. Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. And listeners of the show, you will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your job more visibility at Indeed.com/locked-on. Just go to Indeed.com/locked-on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us today on Locked On Flames. If you remember 2 years ago, Flames had a guy who was going to be potential Hart Trophy winner, but Connor McDavid, was it McDavid or Austin Matthews? It was one.
2 years ago, I think, was Matthews. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Hang on. Keep talking, filibuster.
But it's one of those things where you really do have to look at it situationally. And if you're playing on a particularly bad team, you're probably not going to get as much attention, just because no one wants to watch that. No one wants to put themselves suffering through a Blackhawks game, a Blue Jackets game, a Sharks game. So it really does matter.
And it matters more for the players themselves. It's not a coincidence that on a good team, you're going to typically have like 3 or 4 guys who are all having career years simultaneously. When you're in a good environment, it's easier to play good hockey. When you're on a team that's rolling, firing on all cylinders, everyone's playing loose, everybody's comfortable, they know what they need to do. It makes it a lot easier to play well when you're not lingering on oh my God, I might make a mistake and that might cost us the game here. It really helps when you are in an environment where everybody has this free flowing creativity. Again, it sounds simple and it sounds obvious, but so much of hockey is a string of random events coming together and how they play out. A single bounce can change a whole lot in terms of narratives. That is why it seems like guys who are having those career years, they get every single bounce to go their way. Sure, some of that is just luck. This is an inherently luck-based sport. All sports have an element of luck and variance to them. But when you are having that type of season where you're feeling great about your game, you're going to get those bounces to go your way. You are going to manufacture your own luck, essentially, by playing well in a good environment.
Yeah, and I feel like you can, and we've seen that with the Flames this year too. If you really are just like looking to focus on the Flames, like how they were playing at the start of the season, it was like they were walking on eggshells and truly skating on thin ice, because one wrong move, the whole thing was going to fall apart. But now they do have that effortlessness, maybe a little more, what do you call it, creativity, and they are playing better hockey somewhat.
Baby steps. If they're feeling good about their game and you can maintain that for a while, it'll come eventually. It is difficult when you are in a rut to play effectively. If you are playing well and the goals aren't happening for you, you can't put the puck in the net, you got to stick with what's working. They have a good feel for how their game looks. When you see the disjointed stuff, when you see the panic shots, when you see the puck getting treated like a hand grenade, that's when someone's lacking confidence. Good players find the puck finds good players. I think Rick Nash said that one time, and like that's the most cliche hockey thing you could possibly say, but the best players typically are in and around the play, and they have a way of making things happen for themselves and for other players.
Yeah, absolutely. Good old Rick Nash, Bruins legend.
Hey man, that got the Rangers Ryan Lindgren. So yeah, Bruins legend Rick Nash. Yes, thank you. As far as this conversation and the situation, because you think about the situation in Vancouver, where like Quinn's not going to get any votes because he'll get Norris votes because we don't take defensemen seriously. Hellebyuck, same deal. They don't take goalies seriously in this conversation. If they did, Austin Matthews wouldn't have won the Hart 2 years ago. It would have been Shesterkin, who was the goalie who had one of the 7-8 best goalie seasons of the last 20 years on a team that, conceded 55% of the expected goals at 5-on-5. So goalie and defenseman are out. So you can probably add McDavid. We're going to probably end up with some configuration of Kucherov, Mackinnon, McDavid, Matthews, and then you could pick whoever you want for that fifth spot. We're going to end probably Crosby. It could be any number. It could be Pedersen. There are a lot of people that could come into that conversation, but for the purposes of this conversation, I limited it to 5 because that's what the voters submit. They submit a ballot of 5 votes. Each spot in the ballot gives an associated amount of points. Whoever has the most points, that's who wins the award. So for the purposes of this conversation, the field will start to call. They'll kick out guys like Quinn Hughes and Hellebyuck. They won't be in this conversation. Hellebyuck will win the Vezina. Quinn Hughes should win the Norris, and we'll get closer to a final field that we should have. But I did want to highlight those 2 guys in particular because they're having really good seasons.
Yeah, and like you said, you can find them hopefully at the top of other categories because they are playing out of their minds, and it's nice to see Quinn Hughes playing on a good team. It's what he deserves.
He's had it once before this year. He's been in the league since I want to say 2017, and he's made the playoffs once. He's been in the league since 2018, and he's made the playoff once, and that was the Fugazi playoffs in the bubble in 2020, where they won the 2 rounds, and everybody still talks about that. So It's been a while since the Canucks have been good, and he's been in a situation where he's had an opportunity to be on a good team. Same thing with Hellebyuck. The Jets haven't been this good in probably 4 or 5 years. The year they lost to Nashville in the second round is probably the last time they were good. I think that was 2017, 2018. It might have been 2019, but it all blurs together at this point. But regardless, it's good to see good players get rewarded with a team around them, giving them an opportunity to get a little bit of a bigger profile, more recognition for how good they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does speak to that resilience and grit and determination that we love to slap on any sort of NHL promo because that's what it takes to succeed at the NHL level.
You got to have it to survive those winters in Saskatchewan. So
yeah, I'd request a trade. No, actually, you know what? I would say I'm not signing here. And they can send me to Southern California.
Hey man, the Ducks might stink, but I'd like to live in Orange County.
It seems like a nice place. It's a lot warmer than New York, so I'll take it. But anything else we would like to add to this wonderful discussion?
Don't take awards voting personally. The people who vote on these awards are mostly beat writers who cover one team and watch one hockey team consistently. If you are more likely than not going to be disappointed with the vast majority of these ballots because these people don't watch other games in their free time because they watch a lot of hockey in their day job. Yeah. So there's a difference between me who, I can watch 3 hockey games in a night because I'm set up at my desk versus the person who is at one game, doesn't get out of the arena till probably close to midnight. I don't expect that person to get home and then watch the end of the Sharks-Kraken game.
No, they should go to bed. But yes, that will do it for today's episode of Locked On Flames. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Feel free to drop your nominees or your top 5 ballot in the comment section on YouTube. And I will see you tomorrow. And Nick will be back next week where hopefully we're talking about maybe a trade or an extension because it'd be nice to have that. But any parting words?
Drink some water. I know it's easy to forget about hydration when you're cold, but drink water.